welcome to my garden, everybody. I am so excited to share my space with you today. I love my garden and I hope you'll really enjoy seeing what it looks like. So our space is mostly commandeered by this giant oak tree. It's a super old protected tree and we just adore it as one of the things that really sold the house to us. And although that comes with its challenges in terms of nutrients and water and shade and things like that, we wouldn't trade it for the world because it's just absolutely stunning. My garden is what I'd say is pretty average kind of garden for the UK, especially for the suburbs. It's super average size. It may be slightly bigger than normal, I don't know, but we're really blessed with the space that we've got. I do know that. Having any kind of outside space is a luxury and we do not take it for granted. Also don't take for granted how expensive perennial plants are and how we've been able to afford quite as many as we've got in the garden over the last 2 years. And you might look at this garden and think, oh, it's not finished, or oh, there's bare patches, but it is a work in progress garden. I think my garden will always be a work in progress garden. And I love it that way. I love seeing how things grow from really small little baby perennials to being these huge things. Some things grow really fast, others not. So this rose came with the garden and it's this sunset rose. It sort of starts red in its bud and as it comes out it just turns into a paler pink. It's just absolutely stunning. So we did keep that one in. There was quite a lot of plants that we took out, and if you have seen my Instagram video from last year, you'll see even what the garden used to look like after we took everything out. There weren't many things left and I had only planted a few of these that you see today. So you can go and check that one out on my Instagram on my video section. But yeah, so this year I tried Dahlias for the first time, which have gone okay. There was only one that didn't go so well. But I just think because it's been a strange year for weather, it's been such a cold year, it took a really long time for the sun to arrive and provide enough heat for anything to do anything, and we had such late snow and things like that. There's a lot of things that are about a whole month behind where they were last year, for example. I've got so many new plants this year and it's been such a pleasure to watch them all grow and develop. They are kind of like my babies, and that's part of the reason I wanted to make this video, is just to see them in their infancy, because when I do this video again next year, you'll see them hopefully much bigger. You'll see some of them didn't like where they were, so I've moved them. You'll see some of them that are no longer there because they've been dwarfed by other things, and I kind of don't mind that. It's so interesting to watch and see and learn and just be a part of the ecosystem that is in my garden. That anemone is so huge. So I'm really inspired both by just a traditional English cottage garden style, but I'm also inspired by permaculture principles. And I've been watching a lot of permaculture videos lately just to see how I can incorporate that a bit more into the garden. So that's quite new for me. So it won't look like a traditional permaculture garden. Firstly, there's a lawn, which having kids, a lawn is kind of essential. So we'll probably always have a lawn, although the lawn keeps getting a little bit smaller at the sides as I have been taking the edges in and straightening them off. Oh, these are so beautiful, although as you see in the close-up, there's a lot of ants in our garden. I have not been able to find where they live in order to eradicate them in any way, so I've just gone with they're probably eating the black fly, so they're probably okay to keep around, and until I find out where they're living, there's not much I can do. Gosh, look at those up close. I do a lot of close-ups in this video because I just find the way that leaves are formed, how variegation happens, how you get a lot of spots and different shapes. I just find all of that so fascinating. All the different shapes that you find in nature just are intriguing and just incredible to be quite honest. There's a few volunteer plants, so I think that's an Aquilegia, although it didn't flower this year, so I don't know what will happen with that one. With most of my weeds or volunteers, I let them grow until I know exactly what they are and then I pull them out. And we've got a few surprises in the garden that way. I love my hostas, and one of them is thinking about going to flower, which is exciting. I've never seen a hosta flower before, so that will be interesting, or I'm assuming that's what that is. this is a lovely new pink flower, and it's just so delicate and pretty. That part of the garden really doesn't get much sunshine. It gets some very bright sunshine early in the morning, and then the rest of it, it's just covered with the tree and the fences. So I've had to pick plants that really work well in shade, and most of them have done all right. Some of them don't really like the bright sunshine in the morning, so they need to be moved even further to the side. And but some of them just produce these lovely delicate flowers. And I think probably my favourite plant of the year has got to be this brunnera, which last year didn't really do anything. We saw a few of these lovely leaves. Look at that detail, it's just incredible. But we didn't see any flowers, and this year it just went bananas, and it's got this electric blue. You can see a smidgen of it there, but it was just full of these shoots full of this bright blue, and it's just stunning right at the back there where there wasn't much other colour or anything happening earlier in the year. And this is the tree. Gosh, I love this tree so much. And just all the things that it will have seen. I mean, I know a tree can't see, but just that something's been alive for that long and in our space just gives this sort of sense of connection that I can't quite explain. We've been trying to fill in the grass, as you will have seen in that last Instagram video, and it's going okay. It's not brilliant. I think it's going to take a while before that lawn is quite as I'd like it. And we've also decided to grow the runner beans at the back this year. They were grown in another corner last year, and they did really, really well. I make runner bean chutney, and both of my grandmothers always made runner bean chutney. Maybe one day I'll share the recipe. It's a bit of a family secret. And so we always have to have enough runner beans to make a batch every year. So I thought I'd try them at the back this year. There's a plant that's not quite growing up the trellis. I'm hoping it's still alive. Most things just take a little while to get going. We've been composting as well for the last year, and it's been going really, really well. I've even taken my first compost out of the bottom to spread around the beds. And that's the Tabery, which I have moved, and it is, I mean, it's related to a bramble, isn't it? So it's quite resilient. You can pretty much just cut a stick off, stick it in some compost, and it will grow. But they're delicious, and I'm really excited to watch that one grow. I shall be training it along that fence. And yeah, I'll hopefully get enough to freeze some, eat some, maybe make some Tabery jam. Most things in the garden are either for cutting, so I can bring things inside and enjoy the flowers, or simply just, I mean, I look out at that view all the time, so just something pretty. But there's a lot of things that are edible, and just things I can ferment or pickle, or things that have multiple uses are my favourite. So there's a lot of rhubarb. I've just made a batch of rhubarb puree. This plant always intrigues me. It basically changes colour every season. It seems different almost every week. When I bought it, it was a really lovely dark purple, so I think it must be like that in the autumn. Lilies, they've gone bananas. They're so tall this year. I think they're just reaching for the light because they don't get much next to that fence. This is a rose called Imogen. I've only bought David Austin roses because I just think they're glorious, and that Imogen, she's stunning, but she only flowers for about a day and she'll look amazing, and then the following day she'll just start shedding the petals. Quite intriguing. This passion flower came with the house, and it must be, I'd say, pretty old actually as a plant, but it loves being cut back quite vigorously, and I'm probably prune it actually about twice a year, once in the fall or the autumn, and then once again in the spring. So this corner of the garden is where I sowed a bunch of wildflower seed when we first moved in, and forevermore I keep getting various different wildflowers pop up, which is quite fun. This is a lovely foxglove that I bought, which is a lovely apricot colour. And yeah, there's a few different poppies that have popping up. Also, there's a gooseberry that I did plant ages ago, which I have seen 0 gooseberries on. I don't know if something's eating it or it just doesn't like it in that spot, but it's still alive, so I keep it there. It might just be a pretty slow grower. One thing that does keep popping up is yarrow, which I've been drying for tea, and it's fantastic for soothing tummy ache. So if you've got anything that you would normally take, anything for digestive discomfort or something like that, it's really brilliant at soothing that. And oh gosh, look at the colour of that poppy, it's stunning. The lavender, I was in a pot for quite a few years, and it really has enjoyed being moved to the border, even if that's not the sunniest spot, it really likes it there. This rose is called Queen's Jubilee, and everyone always mistakes it for a peony because it is a peony rose, but it is absolutely stunning. I've just cut most of the roses back, the bush roses in the corner, just so that they will hopefully bloom again. This is probably my favourite corner of the garden, and it's perfect that it's my favourite because it's the bit that I can see when I'm washing the dishes. This Veronica is probably my top favourite plant, even more so than the rose actually. I love the structure of it, that bright blue colour. Clearly I really like blue this year, but I just love how it interacts with the rest of the garden. I love how it's loved by the bees, and I just really love the form of it. There's a lot of herbs in this part of the garden, so chives, which were fantastic this year. I made a lovely chive vinegar that turns lovely pink colour. There's parsley, which has gone to seed, which was lovely before that and I was using every day. I shall get a replacement to put it somewhere else. This pelargonium, it's called Attar of Roses. It smells divine and makes a lovely tea. Some sage, some bay leaves. Throwing in a few more plants for the bees for good measure because they love that cerinthe so much. And I moved the thyme out there as well, just to see whether it would prefer being in the garden than being in a pot, but so far it's not so happy. Edible flowers, of course, we've got to have violas because it just looks so pretty on top of any meal. And I did plant coriander, but it all went straight to seed. It just bolted immediately. It was not a fan of the funny weather that we've had this year. That's another Hebe, a variegated Hebe. It should get quite big. I may regret putting it where I've put it. And that's a rosemary, which I'd put in a pot and got quite dried and looked almost dead. And I thought I will give it one last chance, and I put it in the ground, cut it back quite a way, all the dead bits off, and it has come back to life. This rose is definitely a climbing rose. We inherited this one. It makes us think we should put an arch in that entranceway, and we may do at some point because it really wants to climb so badly. But this rose hasn't been in the best health, and so it gets black spot very easily. So I've been nurturing it, and it's done super well this year. This is a cherry tree that I bought early this spring, and it's starting to produce new leaves, which have been trying to be eaten by ants. There's a few pot plants that I've had for a long time. Some chamomile, something that I don't remember what it is that I've planted. I need to get better at labelling, don't we all? And the strawberries this year have been absolutely phenomenal. I think they've really enjoyed all the rain we've had. A rose I was given by my brother. More violas. And this is an experiment in wisteria growing. There's a wisteria around the corner, and me and my son, who's 5, we picked one of the pods and we thought, let's see if we can get it to grow. And it did grow until I put it outside. But it is looking like it's still alive. So I've kept it in the pot in the hopes it might keep growing, but it may be a predator or pest that is trying to eat it. That's madder that has lovely red roots that I can use for plant dye, and it will dye clothes a really bright and beautiful red, hopefully in a few years' time. So that's my garden. There's various different things around the back, so some old spring bulbs that I'm just letting die off in the corner, some water storage which I'd like to make more of, the pot where I make my nettle garden tea, and then toys for the kids, some lovely mud kitchen and aqua play and just things like that to make it a friendly space, so also my kids stop trampling my plants. So anyway, I hope that you enjoyed that tour of what is a very average English garden, and I hope that you give it a thumbs up, leave me a comment down below letting me know what you enjoyed. Thank you, bye.